This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
Welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies, where we try to solve the world's problems through the miracle of carbohydrates, one recipe at a time, with host Marissa Rothkopf and her dog, Bosco.
Hello, and thanks for joining me on The Secret Life of Cookies today. Oh boy, we have a very special episode packed with genuine news you can use thanks to our incredible guest, Valerie Monroe, the beauty director of O Magazine for 16 years and veteran journalist. We talk about the dramatic impact on journalists, thanks to the seismic shifts, I guess you'd call them, in the world of magazines. And of course, come on, I bombard her with beauty questions, including what are the biggest frauds perpetrated against women and men by the beauty industry, and also genuine tips. We get genuine tips from her on how to feel better and more beautiful inside and out. Yes, inside too. Anyway, I hope you will enjoy the episode as much as I enjoyed speaking with Valerie Monroe. And by the end, I trust and promise you will feel more beautiful inside and out. Thank you so much for joining us. And just a bit of housekeeping, all the recipes for the podcast and links can be found on my Substack newsletter at marissarothkopf.substack.com. You can support my work, please, with a subscription for $5 a month, or if that's not possible yet, you can subscribe for free. And don't forget to join Deep State Radio as a member for special perks, including special subscriber content in this episode. Either way, I am grateful for your support.
Hello and welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies. Today, my guest is Valerie Monroe, who was the beauty director at O Magazine for 16 years. You are a veteran. I'm telling you what you are. And you are a veteran journalist, an inveterate supporter, I would say, of the inner beauty, almost being as important as the outer beauty, but we'll get to that. And you are now host of the wildly popular Substack, one I look forward to every time it pops into my inbox. It's seriously true because it provides such it's such a source of information. And it is called How Not to F Up Your Face, except it's not spelled EFF. It's spelled F***CK. Philosophical and practical advice for anyone who has ever looked in the mirror, which ranks probably a lot of us. Welcome. And why did you, after years in journalism, what moved you to Substack? For those who don't know briefly what Substack is, it's basically a newsletter platform that has been embraced by a lot of us journalists because we can earn money. Hopefully, we get subscribers, and we're our own editors, managing editors, and copy editors. What sent you to Substack?
First, just let me say, I love your Substack.
You're very
too,
sweet.
I have to say, the way you combine baking, which is something that I'm not very good at, with fun, interesting historical information. It's kind of like what I try to do in my own way on my Substack too. And Substack gives us the opportunity to do exactly what we want without the constraints of, in my case, of beauty writing or writing that has to do with beauty, the interference of advertising. So one of the reasons that I love writing for Substack the way I do now is that I don't accept any affiliates or any kind of partnerships. I've turned away some lucrative offers But I do that because I want my reporting to be free of obligation. So readers know, and I think one of the reasons that readers are happy to read my posts about beauty issues is that they know that they're getting my honest opinion or my resources, a doctor's honest opinion without any kind of influence, or need to try to be selling something. Which is
it's no fun. And it
is
a constraint when you're working in a magazine about, having to worry that, Aveeno is on the next page and if you, and maybe Aveeno is the best product, but then it just looks like you're shilling for Aveeno. So that's really one of the great things. Your writing style is brilliant. And it just is so, you are the wise friend that I'm always saying, this is what you need when you're writing, your tone of voice, be the wise friend. And you are the wise friend, and you have a sense of humor, and you make me feel good about myself, which is really better than any therapist. If they're listening, you've been great, but better than any therapist I've had. So I mean that from the bottom of my parts.
So that's so important to me because you asked why I think you just asked why I went into this, and after leaving the magazine industry, and it's because I need to feel that on some level or in some even very small way, I'm providing a service. That is why I got into the magazine industry in the first place when I was in my early 20s, because I thought it was a great opportunity to help women understand various cultural, issues, whatever kinds of issues, in a better way. And I worked at women's service magazines mostly, which was our goal. Basically, if you worked at a good women's service magazine, as I did, the goal was always to provide readers with information that would be useful, that would be helpful to them in their domestic lives, their philosophical lives, their intellectual lives. And when I chose to leave the magazine industry because it had changed in a way that made it impossible for me to want to continue to work there. In other words, just briefly, I quit the magazine sadly in 2017 because I was kind of being forced to work more for the publisher, the advertising people, than for the editorial people. And at that point, the industry had devolved to such a degree that the advertising people didn't really understand anymore what the point was. So, except to make money. And that was just, untenable for me. And a friend, and I thought I might write a book. Unfortunately, it's very hard to sell a book, as you might know, especially if the publisher doesn't know how to sell it, right? And so my agent sent my proposal around to many, like 12 book editors, and they all said, "Oh, we love this idea, but we have no idea what to do with it. She needs a social media platform." And I had noticed that there were various other beauty editors who had got book contracts, but the common thread was that they had, millions of followers on social media. I had no interest in that, in developing that. And so I said, to hell with it. And a dear friend suggested that I look into Substack, which I did. And I started writing, and I started out with 200 subscribers on Facebook. I just said, would you be interested in this? And as they say now, I have tens of thousands of subscribers, and it's all word of mouth, which is another wonderful thing. It's because it means that the community is very strong, and you can see that. I'm sure you see it too in the comments. And I think particularly for women my age, and I think I'm significantly older than you, it's nice to have a group of women to talk about or to, confer about something as something like appearance issues that we're not that comfortable, often don't talk about openly.
I agree with you on about 25 different levels. One, I taught about service journalism yesterday in class, tried to teach them what service journalism was and the reason it's actually real journalism, and feel the same way you do about how advertising as a necessity to keep a magazine alive, in a sense, crossed boundaries, recently. And the Substack community has been, even when I was, writing reviews for the New York Times for restaurants or whatever, in a sense, they get thrown out into the void, and I would hear from various people. My mom liked them, that sort of thing. And I would hear from various people about them. But with my Substack, I have this real community of people who I feel I'm getting to know them, they're getting to know me, and I learn from them. And it's just, I found it so much more satisfying than probably almost any other journalism I've done.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And, except that when I was at the Oprah magazine, I got tons of reader email. So, that this is comparable to that in some way.
Which is like, if the New York Times is listening, though, I'm more than happy to write for them. And I do have a few pitches, so you'll be getting them. But still.
Yeah, right. And good luck hearing back from them. But
to the point of trying to pitch a book, I don't know if people understand how really difficult it is right now. And especially when they're like, you really need a social media platform. And you're like, okay, should I poach chicken and NyQuil and go on TikTok to get someone's attention? I am not a stunning blonde who can, is 5'14" and I'm not good at math. Anyway, who can stand there and like reveal my bosoms and be like, would you like to make brownies with me? That was my Melania impersonation. And so it's a little hard, right? You have to develop a shtick, or you have to do this. And Twitter is falling apart. And should I really be like begging? Should my Jewish self be begging to get on that anti-Semitic platform? And on Threads, I'm like, hi, look at me. And it gets to be, by the way, I'm on Threads at Marissa Rothkopf Eats.
Yeah, right. Good for you. I can't, I'm like still stumbling around in that jungle. I have to say, though, about the book, I have no interest in writing a book now, because I've written a couple of books sitting in my own apartment by myself day after day, getting no feedback from anyone, and like begging to hear back from my editor. It just doesn't compare to what's happening now when I'm still sitting alone in my apartment writing all day. But all day long, I'm getting emails from people saying, I love you so much. I don't know what I would do without you. You helped me so much. It doesn't compare to anything. It's fabulous. The one thing I have to say that I need to remember about this is intention, because getting positive response all the time does sometimes kind of distract me from my intention, which is, bottom line, I know this sounds lofty, but especially in the beauty industry, is basically to do good, and so all I need to do is to just keep doing what I'm doing, and then whatever happens, happens. But as my son said, Mom, if you keep writing, no matter how crappy it is, it's still going to grow. I'm like, well, thanks for the inspiration, honey. But, he's right.
I don't want to agree with him, because I think your writing is so good and it's not ever going to get crappy. But speaking of intentions, my intention today is also to bake with you, which is one of the intentions of this podcast. And I am doing something I don't normally do, but I am decided to go into the Trader Joe's, which we all sort of have as it's sort of like a small church for many of us. It's a religious experience. And I'm going to try some of their baking mixes and see if it's worth it. And here today, I'm going to do and it certainly sounds worth it, brownie truffle baking mix. Right?
Wow.
Made with, yeah. And it's
Really?
Trader Joe's. It's not even some offensive name like Trader, whatever, that got them into trouble. And
where does the truffle come from?
That I'm not supposed to overbake it. And I'm.
Oh, but is it like truffle flavoring?
It's just going to be like a dense chocolate. It should be. That's what I'm expecting. And so that's going to be part of my review here. All it requires here, and that's also what's great for this, is melted butter, which smells like cocoa and milk, really. And it's a lot of mix. And then 2 eggs. And all I have to do is stir while you tell me things. but it does.
Wow.
You
I
could
could
have
have done
done that.
that.
I'm sure you could.
Oh.
And I was thinking, you travel to Japan a lot. You could bring these and like entertain your grandchildren and, or grandchild with these things. Look, grandma can bake.
Yeah.
There's no shame in using a mix if the mix is good. Normally I would add things to a mix though, because I can't help. And I would add vanilla and I would add more chocolate chips because I don't have to finish the sentence. But instead I'm going to do it as they say and see what happens.
Will it be done? Will it be done by the time we
I'll
finish
have
talking? Okay, so you'll have to get into. Okay.
And we're being joined right now by my cat, who's like, "Oh, this is hygienic. Can I come and smell your food?" I don't serve food that a cat has been near. Don't worry, people. To the point that we mentioned earlier about how you've made me feel better, and you've been better than any therapist. How much of being a beauty editor is being a therapist for people?
So, from my point of view, it's 95%. Although I'm always surprised at how much readers enjoy getting product recommendations. There's nothing like it.
We do.
They just love
Yes,
it.
as a reader.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm always trying to include some product recommendations, but the problem with that for me is that I don't really like to try stuff. So, if somebody sends me, I first of all, I often discourage people from sending me things, which when at the magazine I never would have done because we had this enormous beauty closet. Here I'm in a smallish apartment and I just have no room for it. I hate clutter. And so I'm limited. And plus I have a skincare routine and I'm happy with it. And I've always been happy with it. So I'm unlikely to try new products. But when I notice that when somebody does send me something and I really like it and I like it enough to recommend it, I get a huge response, which means that it's something that I should try to include more often, I think. But about being kind of like a therapist, I actually, by the way, I started at NYU to get my MSW because at some point after I left the magazine, I think it was after I left the magazine, or no, while I was still there, but towards the end of my tenure there, I had decided that I wanted to become a therapist, and actually, it was before I got the job because my son was headed off to college, and I was taking courses toward an MSW, and then the Oprah job came up, and I had to choose between the MSW degree and a job that was fairly lucrative, and of course, I took the job. But I do feel now, because I have the opportunity to try to help women understand the deleterious effects of beauty culture that are probably or are often unconscious responses on our part. That if they can understand them better, basically, I'm kind of hoping to raise their consciousness about it. By the way, my first job was at Ms. Magazine in the early 70s, which was one of the best jobs in magazine journalism ever. I was a letters editor eventually. Yeah, during the time, right after Jane O'Reilly had written the Click essay about, basically it was about women waking up all across the country. Anyway, so having the opportunity to carry on in that mode, I think is really, really important. And I wouldn't say that that my posts have actually helped women understand themselves better, except that I get responses from readers saying, I never thought of that before, or, I'm seeing age-related changes in my face. I'm not happy with them. What do I do about it? I don't want to have filler. I don't want to have surgery. Blah blah blah. And basically, the one thing that I try to tell everyone, to get everyone to at least look at, is to consider mirror meditation, which is something that I kind of fell into, which is it's learning how it's an exercise that helps you learn how to see your own face without objectification, which is what most of us do all the time when we look in the mirror. Well, that's what we're taught to do from the time we start seeing ourselves. And when we can when we can unlearn how to look at ourselves by objectifying our faces, we can see our face just as we see the face of any woman we love, our mother, sister, best friend. And that takes all of the bias off it. So instead of seeing our face as a thing, we can learn to see our face as the thing that fronts the person behind it, obviously, and basically we're allowing ourselves to experience our humanity, which is so important.
It is. How do I was reading some of your old past essays, which really are very, very focused on the human as opposed to the blemish, which is what my nickname is for myself. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh no.
But you were talking talk about like normative discontent, that it's normal for women, and this was like, what? It's normal for women to be unhappy with the way we look, as if it were almost like in our chromosomes. And I'd love you to talk about that, but I'd also like, as the mother of a daughter who is about to turn 21 years old. Oh my God, I had her when I was 10. Even then I'd still be. Anyway.
Hey, my son's turning 40, so I don't want to hear about you.
Right. But, I don't think I've done a great job being like, my God, look at you. I'm terrific about myself, I've never not said probably a terrific example, although I've tried to be a modern woman and be like, take me, I'm yours. But the negative comments about herself come out of her mouth. And how much can we not control that? Or how can we control it? What should I do? I'm putting this in the oven. I want you to know these brownies took about 4.5 seconds to make.
Yeah. As soon as we get off, I'm running over to Trader Joe's to see if I can get this. So I think one of the things that's important to think about is that the conflict is normal. Feeling conflictual about it, we all do, right? So to kind of like beat yourself up or to be unforgiving about, not being a perfect model for your daughter, it's unfair. I mean, you're being very hard on yourself if you do that. And I think the reason we feel conflicted is because on many levels we know better than to accept the cultural limitations, the deleterious effects of a beauty culture that has, that is hypersexualized, that is totally youth oriented. But when you're being bombarded by images and by messages that are validating that concept all the time, it's impossible not to feel conflicted about it. What you mentioned about, it being normal for women to feel bad about the way we look was something that I had hoped you would bring up, because I talked about it recently, because there was a study that showed that psychotherapists were asked to rate the personality traits of a healthy woman, a healthy man, and a healthy person. And preoccupation with appearance, which is vanity, right, was rated normal for a healthy woman, but abnormal for a healthy man and for healthy people in general. So that leaves women stuck in a damned if we do, damned if we don't situation, because, if we're aware that we're judged, right, by our appearance or our attractiveness, but then if we admit how deeply we value looking good, we're screwed, basically, because it means we're vain. So it's an impossible situation. Conflict is built into it.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Start your day with Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal. The instant oatmeal ready to help you tackle whatever your day brings. Like wrangling your toddler into their car seat. That was fun. Coaching your 6th graders soccer team. Go girls! And carrying all the groceries in one trip. Whew. Try Quaker Protein Instant Oatmeal, granola, and bars. Great taste and a good source of protein. Quaker, bring out the good.
No one can tell, but my shoulders just sort of sank. I'm
sorry.
So if
sorry.
I'm talking for women now in general, because damn, we're sort of screwed. If we want to switch the dialogue, from self-criticism to self-compassion, and as I get older, I'm grateful to be getting older, but as I get older, the two, self-compassion and self-criticism, seem to be at war with each other. Can you solve all my problems? No, I mean, I realize I'm like, here, there's also, because climate change is bad. Can you do something about that? Just lay it all on you. But along with like mirror meditations, what is it that and not having a magnifying mirror. I thought that was one of the greatest tips I was reading. It's like, no, you don't need that. Maybe for plucking your eyebrows. In my case, I like it for eyeliner, but other than that, because I'm sort of blind, but other than that, don't need to see my pores, do I?
You don't. And I think again, accepting that the conflict is normal, and also learning how to be kinder to ourselves is so important. And that involves, it involves internal things you do internally, right? Emotionally. So that involves the mirror meditation thing, where you look at yourself. And actually, just to explain a little bit more about that, when you're staring into your own eyes, when you're doing this exercise, you're allowing feelings to come up. So basically, I equate it to deep listening. So deep listening is what you do if you're a good friend, right? It's what you do with your best friends, you do with the people you love, to allow them to understand that they're being seen and heard. You can do that for yourself too. But most women don't, because we see ourselves as objects, And so I think one of the main things we need to learn how to do is to be able to listen to ourselves and to understand our conflict, to understand the sad feelings we have about what happens as we age with our appearance, because let's face it, it involves a lot of loss. And, especially if you were appreciated by whoever standards as, an attractive person when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 70s, it's an entirely different experience. And I think acceptance is key on so many levels. And it also happens to be one of the hardest things we can do. But I think it's possible to practice it. And when we practice it, we ultimately, even if it's just in a moment, can feel better about the way we feel about ourselves. I mean, there's no easy answer to it. It requires attention. It requires compassion and self-compassion and kindness to ourselves. And I've always said, like, if you can't be compassionate with yourself, forget about being compassionate with other people, because whatever you're trying to give to other people isn't coming from the heart. It's coming from, I don't know where, intention or some kind of superficial behavior.
That's really interesting. It's also, would you talk to yourself the way I don't ever talk, right? I don't talk to myself that, I wouldn't talk to a friend the way I talk to myself.
Exactly. If you can imagine, when you're, say, looking in the mirror and you're coming down on yourself or being hard on the way you look, if you can imagine saying those things to someone you love, that's a good way to recognize that you're not being fair to yourself, not being kind to yourself.
We need to rework like the neural pathway in our brain. Basically, it's like a muscle. And that's and like a mixed
right.
metaphor, but it's yeah.
But you're absolutely right. And the more we do that, the easier it becomes. I remember interviewing the woman who wrote Nancy Elkoff. Oh God, am I saying her name wrong? She's a friend. She wrote Survival of the Prettiest. Nancy Etkoff. She wrote a book called Survival of the Prettiest many years ago. It's really, really good. And one of the things she says is that we have to learn how, as a culture, to train ourselves to look at and appreciate beauty in something other, in women other than, young, thin, pretty, white, whatever, and we have to train ourselves to do that. But we have so much culturally working against us in mainstream media and now in social media. It's just, and whatever efforts are being made to be more inclusive are so, in my opinion, so superficial And even when the intention is good, the strides we're making are so sorry. Like, for example, the Martha Stewart thing about, this 80-something-year-old woman being on the cover of Sports Illustrated in a bathing suit. I mean, there were people who said, great, now we're seeing older women on, and I'm thinking, number one, that's not what she looks like at all. Number two, why are we sexualizing her? I mean, it's just, we were only, they were only, continuing to push forward these terribly damaging ideals.
It's right. Even at 80,
anyway,
you're supposed to look like her that. So like, hurt me. That hurts. It's like,
yeah. Well, the whole aging gracefully idea it's just one more way for us to have to do something that's, more difficult than it has
do you
to
have
be.
a sense that other cultures like have a different approach to aging? I feel like I was just in the UK and they were there, like, I feel like they were going to give out like stickers and candy to women going through menopause. It's like, let's do this. Yeah. Whereas here, people are sort of willing to talk about it, but it's still it's a bit quiet.
Well, I think there's some of that here now too, although it's all marketing based. So it's like, whoa,
I saw creams for menopausal women, which I think I wrote you about at CVS, and it's like, really? But is it true to me that is different?
That's right.
Yeah.
And the answer is nothing. Yeah. Just so you know.
But do you think there are different cultural approaches? Like, is there a country would be better off in?
I just said to the guy who cuts my hair, I want to be, 75 in Milan. The women, there are class issues involved in this too, but, right. When you look on Instagram at reels or pictures of, older women in Italy, even, the ones who, when they're like in Sardinia or Sicily and they're so tanned, their skin is like leather. They're just so like seem so comfortable with how they look. And, maybe it's because, I don't know what that is, except, maybe the food is so delicious there that that's all they're thinking about is food and not about the way they look. But, overall, I think the pervasive issues about, striving towards some unrealistic ideal in most Western cultures are very similar. Even in Japan, for example, where I thought I saw very little face work, right? And then I read somewhere that they were the 4th in plastic surgery. Probably it was just eyelid surgery, sadly, right? But still, when I'm like wandering around the drugstores out there, is the beauty products that they sell there are just, it's phenomenal. And they don't do anything different than the beauty products do here. They're all the same, basically. Even some of the same
but I'll
companies.
wander through like the aisle of there's a store on Lower 6th Avenue or 6th Avenue and 10th. It's a great store. Yeah.
Near Bigelow.
And more fun than Bigelow to me, because I'm like, there's all the promise of great, it's an Asian market, and the promise of beauty is just everywhere. Right. It's
what's great about that, about Japanese beauty, accessories is nail clippers. They make the best nail clippers in the world. I don't know why, but when I like buy them in bulk,
what makes them good
there, just because well, first of all, they're contoured in a way that makes it easy to cut your nails, especially if you like them shortish. And they collect the nail it doesn't fly all over the place. It goes into this little thing. And then when you're done with it, you can just.
Why don't we have good things like that? That is okay. Now I know what to look for.
We probably do.
I've looked for. I don't know. It's better than the things. Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about nails while we're talking about food. I want to quote something back. I wanted to actually interrupt myself to say the thing about Italian women. Didn't Sophia Loren say that herself about what is the secret to your beauty? And she's like, spaghetti,
Right. Or right,
Exactly.
bosoms. I mean, I just whatever it is, and you know what? When I look at their faces, they look their age. I mean, they're aged faces, and somehow they're just so beautiful. I mean, I do think that the older we get, the more important style is. So, which also has to do with posture, which I think is super and super important. Somebody said to me, "Yeah, like, how do you, not look invisible?" And my answer is always stand up straight and look people in the eye, and also don't be so quick to speak. So if somebody asks you a question and you're not sure of the answer, just look them in the eye. Don't say anything. It's it's a very powerful strategy.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a first class beauty secret, because I think a lot of women of a certain age do feel invisible. I want to quote something at you, because it does go on about, I loved it, about aging. And you write, the sagging skin, the thinning hair and bones, the decrepitude, which is a great word, decrepitude, what one friend calls the ick factor. It's hard to believe that's ever going to happen to robust, fructiferous you until it does. Then, booga booga, you're old.
Well, it happened to
Exactly.
me.
It happens to all of us.
Right.
It can really get us down, and I think a lot of us want to know the secrets to keeping it at bay. And I think in a few minutes, I want to switch into a lightning round of questions for you. How do we handle the onslaught of possibilities, from Botox to filler to, do we do this? How do you approach it? I think you had your own sort of journey with Botox.
I did actually. Yeah. I started out, and this was many years ago. I had made an appointment to have it done, and I went to the dermatologist's office, and I was filling out the form, and the form said something like, "Don't lie down for the next hour," or something. I was like, "Oh my God." And I didn't sign the form, and I ran out. I left. I just didn't have it done. And then I got up more courage, read some more about it, and I had it done once, and I do it twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. And I don't do my crow's feet. I just do my forehead, because I like a little lift on my eyebrows. I have very heavily hooded eyes, and so it keeps me able to see a little bit. And I had it done, and then a friend looked at me and said, "Wow, you look like well rested or something. You look great." And I was like, "That's it. I'm doing it." Yeah. So, I mean, that positive reinforcement really has a lot to do with my decision to have some things done. I mean, my goal is to have pretty skin, so if I can, so everything I do is toward that goal, rather than to look younger or to change the contours of my face. Because I'm writing about this for next week's post, because I got a reader question about facial filler, and I don't like to encourage it, because there's so much that can go wrong, especially when you don't have access to a brilliant and skillful dermatologist or plastic surgeon, and I don't know how many of us do. And the way doctors are taught to inject is not very good, I don't think. So, in other words, they're often taught to inject in ways that don't take into account all of the very, nuanced issues that you have to be thinking about in terms of facial features, in terms of the musculature, that you must know about before you shoot anything into anybody's face. So
that's concerning.
Well, yeah, it is concerning, actually. But what was your question?
I was
asking me about.
I was asking,
what to do.
what we can do to make us feel like aging is in our control.
To mitigate the feeling of loss of control. I would say probably nothing. until you have confronted the fact that your face is going to change forever because you're organic, right? Because we're mammals, so nothing is going to stay the same, right? So that's the problem, obviously, the main problem with the anti-aging idea. Yeah, really. Right. Well, there are people who have chosen to try to like put their face in a kind of stasis, and we know what that looks like, right? So for me, like what I like to recommend is like tweaks. If you're interested in doing something, to stay looking vibrant and healthy as you age, I would say number one, take the best care of your skin possible. And the number one ingredient to do that is sunscreen. So many of us, certainly people my age, who it's too late for, we all use sunscreen now, or most of us do if we're thinking people. But when we were in our 20s and 30s, probably didn't, right? And did the opposite, right? Cocoa butter and reflectors, right? So now it's a matter of assessing the damage that we've done and trying to mitigate that, right? And there are lots of ways to do that. The main thing is keep wearing sunscreen, but I'm often suggesting to people that they try a retinoid because it's one ingredient that's been clinically proven over and over again to stimulate elastin and collagen and to smooth fine lines and wrinkles. It works. So if you can't tolerate it because it does cause your skin to
it can be irritating.
It increases cell turnover. Yeah, it can be irritating.
What about, does it also work for guys?
Different kinds of
I don't mean to make this all about the ladies, but it's skin is skin, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, except men's skin, facial skin is often thicker. And the reason I think that we sometimes think that men's skin looks better is because they shave. And so they're doing this constant exfoliation. So their skin can look somewhat more, can look brighter. But I have to say, there are a lot of women
I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, when I was at the magazine, we were having an editorial meeting, and there was like 12 just magnificent women sitting around this table. And one of them from the South revealed that her family for years had always shaved in secret in the shower. And I wrote something about that in the magazine and got a torrent of email from women saying, "Oh, I've been doing that for years." Secretly shaving their face in the shower. So, okay, bless them if that's what they do and it makes them feel good. There's nothing wrong with it. Your hair, your facial hair doesn't grow back thicker. But somebody caught on because suddenly dermaplaning became a very popular dermatological procedure treatment. What is that? It's shaving, basically, shaving your face. So it was just one of the ways that the very creative beauty marketing community took over something that had been clearly going on underground for years and made it not only acceptable, but seductive.
Right. And I think that's, before we switch to, we have a, just for subscribers portion of the podcast, and we're going to switch to that in a moment, in which I'm going to give you a lightning round of questions about beauty that I've gathered from my stable of friends, who I think like much of the world. So we'll do that. But how do we avoid I know someone's going to listen to this question and be like, you just don't listen. But it's hard not to, because it's seductive. How do we avoid the siren song of all those shelves at the CVS, which is almost alliterative? But there's so much there that has so much hope and promise.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, is that it has hope and promise, and that's what the big beauty industry relies on to make money from us by feeding our yearning, by encouraging us to feel dissatisfied or unsettled about the way we look. So all that stuff, some of it's good. What I tell people is just not to spend a whole lot of money on it. So, a drugstore moisturizer like CeraVe, which is what I use at night. Yeah. Which has, niacinamide and other ingredients that are basically won't harm your skin and is a good moisturizer, work just as well as the, $300-400 moisturizers. What you're paying for when you're buying that kind of stuff is the packaging. and the idea that if you use it, you're going to improve your complexion. The thing is, like if I tell people that if you can afford it and it makes you feel good, sure, go ahead and buy it, but just don't, enjoy the mood boost, but don't expect to see anything, an improvement in your complexion. And I think just remembering that, what the opportunity is for marketers is to get us to open our wallets. It's not to be healthier or to look better. It's basically to make us feel unsettled about how we look so that we'll buy the next best thing. And, that's what I find really sad about the beauty industry and our participation in it. And I, with my mom, I used to tell her a million times, like, there are various creams that she would ask him, but doesn't that, she would see an advertisement, but doesn't that do that? And I would say, I just said yesterday, but it's the promise, it's the hope and the promise. And it's very, very powerful.
And I think the hope and the promise, but also how, and as in your words, unsettling it is. It's meant to unsettle us. It's meant to sort of mess with us, to look at that. I mean, and some of these products are great, but like to look at an Olay product that's like, and if you apply this every night, this is going to happen to you. You're going to look like that 24-year-old because she's advertising it, I'm like, I can do it. And I think that's a really, really good message. Yeah.
Also, the worst thing about that is that when you do it, when you buy that product and you try it and you don't achieve the results that are promised, then there are various, you're going to feel various things. First, you're going to think, well, I'm not using it right? Then you might think, well, I haven't used it long enough. Maybe I need something else. And then worst of all, you're going to think, I'm beyond help, right? That's why the industry is so damaging, because it makes, bottom line, a lot of it just makes us feel bad about ourselves. And I find that really sad. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to counteract.
That's the reason that you have so many followers of your Substack, because it is so matter of fact and inspiring, just to sort of stop letting them unsettle us. I'm going to open the oven now and look at these brownies. One moment. Then we're going to switch to our lightning round. I think they're done at 25 minutes here. And they look a lot like brownies and smell delicious like chocolate. So we'll see what happens. In the directions, it actually says, allow to cool for 30 minutes. Like, don't tell me what to do with my warm brownies. Bossy. Anyway, I thank you very much for being here. I'm going to switch now to, become a member of the Deep State Radio podcast crew. And you can have access to all sorts of special content like this, where I do a beauty lightning round with you, getting all our deep questions answered by you. So thank you all for, you have as much time as you need. So I thank you all to our listeners. And if you can, become a member, and then you get access to it all.
Thank you for listening. Please sign up for Valerie Monroe's Substack at valeriemonroe.substack.com. You can find me at marissarothkopf.substack.com too. Do you see a trend here? Substack? The way of the future for journalists. Didn't we just say that? Anyway, you can also find me at Marissa Rothkopf Eats on Instagram and all sorts of places on social media. Anyway, if you're hanging around on Threads, you can find me there too. Please give me a follow at Marissa Rothkopf Eats. Thanks, and have a great week.
Quick break. One useful thing to share, I thought TikTok was just dances. Turns out, it's where I learned how to save money, fix stuff, and get real tips. Short videos, real people. Download TikTok now.